Hey everybody, Sergio with the RideShare Guy. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Wheel. Today I'm joined by Trent. Trent, you're from Palm Beach, right? Florida?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I'm joined by Trent, and he's obviously a veteran driver. Without further ado, Trent, please introduce yourself and let's get right into it. What you did before Uber and Lyft and the gig world. Give us a synopsis of your life, basically.
Sure. Yeah. No worries. Out of college, I was a Border Patrol agent for about 4 years in Laredo, Texas. 9/11 hit, transferred to the Air Marshal Service for about 7 years in Atlanta. Went back, got a master's degree, started working multitudes of jobs. Was a director of a hospital here locally and had a stroke a couple of years ago. So decided that working 100 hours a week was not what I wanted to do anymore for the rest of my life. So I had always done Uber part time on the side, but I just decided that I was going to go for it full time. Started doing it about full time 2 years ago, and then decided to create an LLC, get my own licensing, commercial insurance, start doing a lot of private trips. And it's been almost 2 years now, and I'm doing it full time.
Yeah, I mean, here's a driver that started with the lower platforms, let's say Uber X and Uber Comfort, and then he discovered or he figured out that he wants to be in business for himself as opposed to being at the whimsy of the algorithms, as we call it. And we're going to talk about the whimsy of the algorithms in a couple of minutes. So how easy was it for you in Florida to do this, right? Obviously, you need higher end cars. You're not going to do an LLC for a Prius that you're driving, a beater Prius you're driving around for 5 years, right? So
Right.
first, tell us a little bit about the thought process behind you moving up in platforms. Like, why did you do that? Did you think Uber X was not sufficient enough for you?
It was just you kind of get tired of the $3 pay, $4 pay, $3 pay, $4 pay, and trying to do Uber X, you're working 10, 15 hours a day just to make ends meet. It was too much on me. And then I started realizing that the wear and tear on the car actually adds up. So I had decided to buy an older BMW to start with and started doing a little bit higher platform. And it actually worked out better because I was driving probably half of the miles. So, of course, you have a less wear and tear if you drive half the miles. So, in reality, it was a little bit more expensive, but the pay went up substantially. And the key here is we have two different seasons. We have a snowbird season, which runs about October to May, and that's probably about 1 million people from New York come down and they flood the market. Most of them are pretty wealthy. They have two, three houses. They do a lot of Premier, a lot of Lux Black. That's just what they like. A lot of them are older. They're in their 70s, their 80s. They're used to having black car services in New York. So I've noticed that most people here have Denali's, they have Suburbans. And the good thing about being on this platform is it doesn't have to be a new car. You can buy a car that's 3, 4 years old with 50, 60,000 miles. Actually, the mileage doesn't matter. I mean, from what I've been told, as long as you keep your car clean, that is the key. Don't tell them no. They'll and keep your car clean. So if you think about it in reality, if you go buy a Suburban with 100,000 miles on it and you keep it clean, the passenger doesn't know the difference. So you can actually still make higher end money, even though you might have some higher end costs, when your car breaks down or whatever. But the cost, I mean, the financial gain was substantial for me. When I was doing Uber Lyft by itself, I would average about 1,000 a week, but I was working 60 to 70 hours. I can now have some weeks where I can make $6,000 and I work half the hours. But a lot of that's now my private business. But with Uber and Lyft, you can still. And you also get some pretty cool clients doing black. I mean, depending on where you are. Like I have four people who are high end politicians. I have four NFL players. I have some movie producers. You never know who you're going to run into. And the key with this job is making connections. You
Yeah.
can always make connections. 90% of my private business comes from a neighbor telling a neighbor telling a neighbor, or a politician telling somebody. And it works that way. And you can charge what you want. And it's just a great business model. But you got to love what you do. Like that's the key. If you don't like driving, you're not going to be successful no matter what car you have.
Yeah, I mean the other thing is, I think you followed our program, our playbook, which
Yeah.
is, show me the money. If you build it, they will come. All the CEOs are
100%.
showing up, all the drivers are showing up, and you're building it and they're coming. And obviously, on the higher end, right, economics is not going to make that much of a difference, right? People still have the disposable income to spend for transportation. And like you said, word of mouth, you're building a business. And I mean, this is the time to ask you, do you really like what you're doing?
I love it. I love it. Like Uber and Lyft, of course, we all have issues, right? I mean, they are what they are. But if you start working for yourself, you start doing things your own, you're your own boss. So
Yeah.
I've always been a true believer. If you want to be a millionaire, work your butt off and it'll come. If you want to be broke, then just don't work as much. I mean, I think you guys said it best. You got to work when you're busy. So if I don't want to go out at 1 in the morning to pick up a client, okay, but I'm losing $300. If
Yeah.
I want to go out, I'm going to make money. So it's up to me. But that's the great thing about working for yourself is it's up to you.
Yeah.
So, I went for vacation for a whole month. I didn't have to ask somebody if I can take off. I just
Yeah.
did it. It's
Yeah.
a
Well,
great.
there's definitely, good sides of the gig world, and it's not that you're a true independent contractor, with your own LLC.
Right.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the cars you invested in. And, look, I mean, a lot of people are going to watch this. It's a given. And they're going to probably want to get into something like what you did. But, you have to have the financing right. You have to have your funds straight. I mean, you cannot just go buy $100,000 Suburban, right? Not everybody can afford that. So tell
Right.
us a little bit about the background of that, how you did that. Did you get into a lot of debt? And is the cash flow now supporting that debt and paying the cars off, obviously? But start with the two cars that I know you're
Right.
providing services with.
Yeah, I truly believe that if you're going to make money, you have to spend money, and there is definitely going to be cost involved with anything. I started off with a 2017 Model S Tesla,
Mhm.
which I paid about $60,000 for, but I put 60,000 miles on it in 6 or 7 months. That was the car that I really started with my high end. There's the Lyft app right now. So
Always the
the
driver, right?
the all right, here's your $6 comfort trip. They're not even called extra comfort trips now. The So I started off with that car. I actually put a lot of miles on that car, but I was taking my finances, everything that I had extra, and paying it on the car. My
Yeah.
goal was to get that car paid off as soon as I could. Once I did, I traded it in for my Model S Plaid that I have now, which
Oh,
cost me about $112,000. But I got $50,000 trade in, and then what I started doing was everything extra I was throwing on the car payment.
yeah.
I did get in when we had the low interest rates, so I got like 3%. So that was great. But once that was paid off, my Model S Tesla. So the Tesla saved me about $3,000 a month in gas, because here electricity is very cheap in Florida.
Yeah.
I can fully charge my car. Our FP&L program here has $30 a month, unlimited charging at your house. It's $30 a month. That's including
Wow.
the.
Okay.
So, I can fully charge and get 400 miles on my car, and that can take me pretty much throughout the day. Otherwise, I use a supercharger. It's $7, $8, $9. That's it for
Yeah.
400 miles. So that actually, the money that I saved in gas allowed me to pay the car down multitude. Of course, a lot of my clients were asking for a Suburban or an Escalade, or to that extent, because you have baggage, you have airport trips, which is
Yeah.
mostly what we do here. And I would rent a vehicle and lose money on those trips just because I did not want to lose the client. If I have a client that I'm doing 15 trips a month for, and he's paying me $300 a pop, but he needs a Suburban 3 times out of that trip, I would pay the 300, one day, $100 for the Suburban and lose money on those trips
Yeah.
because it's the general overall. You don't want to lose that client.
Yeah.
So I ended up buying a 2022 Suburban with like 11,000 miles for $73,000. And I've now put 40,000 miles on it in 4 months, but I almost got it paid off.
Yeah.
So from what I've made, I've just been throwing extra on it. And now I'm actually looking at a second SUV. So it's
What are you going to do with that? Are you going to rent it out, or are you going to rent it to another driver, or what is it?
so
I mean, you're
that's
growing a business. Obviously, you're going to do this for a while,
correct.
right? And
So my son is in the National Guard. He helps me quite a bit. So there's multitude of days that I am, for instance, the day before 2 days ago, I had 13 trips scheduled one day. 4 of them were at the same time. So he will actually take my Tesla and do
yeah.
the trips for me. So if I have a second SUV, it's good. The Tesla, I'm actually thinking about trading in to get the second SUV because the SUVs do make a lot more money than
Yeah.
a regular car.
Yeah.
So but the key now is I want to find an electric SUV that seats 7 people so I
Yeah.
can save on the gas. The Suburban, I'm putting about $800 a week in gas in the
Yeah.
car. So, and the Upside app that you recommend has been great. I've already got $70 back in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, apps like that help, multitude.
Absolutely. But you
So,
because you're a businessman though, that's why, right?
right,
You're looking at all your numbers, and if it makes sense, you're going to do the investment. If it doesn't make
right.
sense, and that's what we tell everybody. This is your small business. I don't care if you're driving X, Lyft, Standard, whatever it is. It's your small business. You got to know your cost. If you don't know your cost, then you're dead from the get-go, right?
100%. And honestly, too, when I first bought the Suburban, I rented it. I rented it out on Turo, and I was getting 1,700 a week for it.
Yeah.
So I made almost $6,000 just in that when it was sitting.
Yeah.
So I think people need to learn that multitudes of streams of income are critical, and
Yeah.
especially today. And I'm a firm believer that if I go spend $20 on a hamburger, that's $20 I could have invested somewhere in something else. And I think that that's how people should think with everything in life. Like if I go spend $20 here, that's $20 I could have put in something else.
Yeah.
So, but back to the topic, the Suburban I just bought 4 to 5 months ago. I've already probably grossed almost $60,000 in from that car alone. So
Yeah.
in 4 months. So, I've had some weeks where I've been up to $7,000 or $8,000 a week in rides. So,
Yeah.
and after expenses, still running $3,000 to $4,000. So
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that though, if you're going to grow the business, obviously you're going to grow a fleet of these cars, and you can rent them out and do whatever you want. But so you're on your way and you're doing it profitably, right?
right.
And let's talk a little bit about this is the business that you want to be in, and you're doing it successfully, right?
Right.
I know you said you had a health scare, and obviously you're fine, and thank God. And this is the good part of the gig economy, right? And you may have Uber passengers, Lyft passengers that you can convert towards your business because you're legally doing it with an LLC with full commercial insurance. You're not cutting corners. But let's talk a little bit about the experience that actually brought us together closer over the past few days, right? Yeah, Ted, talk to us a little bit about that. We always talk about shaving, right? This upfront fares thing has many ways that Uber and Lyft, and specifically Uber in the case, they try to shave tips now. They're trying to shave distance and duration. And basically, they're just nickel and diming drivers. But in your case, it wasn't a nickel and dime. It was $100 bill, right?
Yep.
Oh, tell us a little bit about that and how you got your $100 back.
So on Wednesday this week, I got a premier hourly SUV trip for 7 hours. They send you the upfront fare, which was $486 for 7 hours. That included 140 miles and the course of the 7 hours. It was supposed to be $3.13 per mile after the 140, and I believe 91 cents or 90 cents per minute afterwards. So I formed a really strong bond with this lady. I took her to South Beach. We did a whole tour. We picked up her friends, hung out with her. I gave her my business card, which best way to advertise is through Uber and Lyft, anything. Gave her my business card. She started texting me right away. And as soon as I completed the trip with her, it showed that I was paid $386. And I told her, wow, this is weird. Like they're paying me 100 less. And she looked and said, no, they charged me 749. They charged me the same thing. And she goes, I want to tip you, but I want to wait because I want to make sure you get this fixed correctly.
Yeah.
And I said, tip you. She goes, I'll tip you in a couple of hours.
Okay.
So I made a phone call to Uber, did the live chat with Uber. They gave me, we have a glitch. The new have a glitch, and I'm like, so you have a glitch where you can pay me the 386, but not the other 100. Yes, we can access your
Of course not. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So they're like, well, and then the live chat, we don't have access to do that, so we have to transfer you. Then they disconnect you. So multitudes of calls, nothing happened. She ended up tipping me $108 about 2 hours later, which brought my pay up to like $493. So I finally decided to call back the next day because I gave them 12 hours to try to figure it out to see if I woke up with the money. It did not. So when I called yesterday and I was on the phone for an hour and 45 minutes, I was transferred to different people. And the lady told me, no, your tip was included. That was the upfront fare. And I'm like, no, hold on, because if that's the case, are you psychic? How did you know she was going to tip me $100? Because the tip is included before the thing. And I said, you're thinking of Uber Eats. This is not Uber Eats. You do not tell me the trip up front.
Wow.
So I kept asking her for an address to send a demand letter because I was going to take it to small claims court. I do not care if it cost me $1,000. I was doing it. And finally, after an hour and 40 minutes being transferred 3 times, they transferred me to a senior support lady who was like, okay, I fixed it. I gave you a credit.
Yeah.
But then the fun email that you get says, as a one-time courtesy, we will credit you $101.
Yeah.
They were literally trying to throw the tip in saying that I got paid the full upfront fare when the tip should have been extra.
Yeah, that's the skimming part, right? They go like all in one bucket. You know, your tip is in one bucket, your boost is in one bucket, your incentives are in one bucket. This is it, take it or leave it. I'm like, no, that's not going to work that way. But in your case, obviously, you know, it came to a happy ending. But you know, let's before we jump into the next ridiculous thing that I've ever heard in my life, let's just jump back a little bit to your driving, right? You said you bought the Suburban with like a few miles, 11,000 miles on it, and you put 50,000 miles on it already.
Yep.
So you do a ton of driving. I mean, that's a lot of miles, right?
Yeah, over 100,000 last year.
Wow. Okay. So at some point though, right? You know, are you going to keep doing Uber and like Uber Black, let's say, or Lyft Lux Black and all these upper category, or in Florida, I think it's called Premier.
Yeah.
Are you going to stay on these apps, or are you going to wean yourself off and just be a totally separate entity with your own private clientele? Is that what the goal is here?
I don't think I will ever get off of Uber and Lyft altogether, because for here in Florida, we have 3 main airports. We have a PBI, which is Palm Beach. We have a Fort Lauderdale and Miami. Fort Lauderdale and Miami both are 40 to 70 miles from me. So there's a lot of times I'll do a trip to Miami for $250, $300. But I want a trip back home either way. I charge. So when I give somebody a quote, I always quote my trip back too. So if I'm taking somebody 60 miles, I try to make $2 a mile, but I try to do it with my return trip too.
Yeah.
So if it's 60 there, 60 back, I try to charge them 240.
Yeah.
So that, but then I try to double dip with Uber Lyft coming back and see if I can take 5 small trips for $10, $15, so I can at least get more money back. So I don't think I'll ever get off the Uber Lyft app, because like, that is something that you can use. But as far as trying to wean myself off, yes, like the summertime here is very slow. So I do a lot of Uber and Lyft, but now that my clients are coming back, I don't do much Uber and Lyft. I think like next week, I'll probably, I'll make 500-600 with Uber and Lyft, but I'll leave my app on all the time. If you look at my app, it's like I'm on for 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
I only have 12 hours because I think my acceptance rate's like 6%.
Yeah. As it should be. As it should be. With the
Like,
garbage that they throw at you, as it should be. So the ultimate goal obviously is, you're building the private business, right?
But here in Palm Beach, it's expensive too, because you have to put a $10,000 fee down to get your license, and you have to have a minimum of 7 cars to be registered with your LLC, and then you also have to pay a $300 a year per car per airport sticker. So you're talking $900 a year per car. So that's $5,600 on top of the $10,000. So they make it really hard for people here who don't have a $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000 investment up front to get your, to protect the cab companies. Yeah. But you can work under other cars licensing. So like right now I'm working for another company under their license. I pay for my stickers.
Yeah.
And that way, until I can build that 7-car fleet and start, my
Is that the plan? Is that the plan?
That is the plan. Correct. Okay. That is the plan.
And hire drivers or rent them out, lease them out to other drivers, Uber Black drivers or whatever they are. Okay. 100%. I'm like actually interested about what's happening in general with the U.S. economy, right? I mean, as we know, there's more drivers in actually Florida and Texas are the 2 worst rideshare markets for drivers who are in the lower platforms. Yeah. And as we know what happened with Lyft, like they got rid of Lux. Now you have this wonderful thing called Comfort, which pays nothing. But I think as a company, I know where they're coming from, and they did it to compete with Uber Comfort and priced it exactly pretty much to what it was, because now all these people with high-end cars, if it's not black, they're screwed. I mean, that's why I say it, that's why Trent figured it out. He has no control over this thing, right? And he decided to go his own way, and he's doing it very profitably. How's the economy in Florida? Like, are you seeing, even in your rich private clients, are you seeing a holdback or a pushback as far as the pricing is concerned, or the frequency of trips, or are rich people always going to spend?
No, they're going to spend. I mean, the regular car service here will charge you 150 an hour, and
Mm,
they spend it like it's going out of style. So it's I mean, most people I undercharge intentionally because I tried to build a repeat business because that's where the money is. And so normally what I will do when I pick somebody up is once I build a little rapport with them, I'll say, "How much did you pay for this trip?" They'll tell me 160, 150. I'll say, "Next time I'll do it for exactly what you paid, but you don't have to wait 40 minutes for an Uber driver to come pick you up."
yeah.
That's how I've been building my client base. So I'll charge them exactly what Uber Black will charge them. And they're very happy with that because most car services will still be another 100, 200. And
Yeah.
that's still enough for me to make a huge profit because I don't have that $10,000 overhead. I don't
Yeah.
have that, right? And then I've actually become friends with some of these clients. I mean,
Yeah.
I had one last year pay for my full self-driving for 1 year as a Christmas gift.
Wow.
That's $400 on my Tesla. And, he's asking me to take him to New York. He asked me to take him to Atlanta and like they've just become family with me. I'll take him to emergency room visits or, and I do a lot of small trips, just taking people to a doctor. They'll give me $75 for 1 hour. Most
Yeah.
people are like, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, why? You're just sitting in your car. You're not even driving.
Exactly.
$75 for an hour? Like, why not?
You're driving, you're working hard, but you're getting the benefits out of it. While you talked about the emergency room, let's talk about your quickly in a couple of minutes your
Yeah.
experience with a Lyft passenger. Now,
Uh,
I know this is true because I have the screenshots of the support chat that Trent had trying to get his I don't know $3 or
$3.
something. We shouldn't be laughing about this, but it's laughable. Okay, so indulge us, people. So there you go.
So yeah, I think it was January of this year. I pulled up to a house here in Palm Beach, elderly over 55 community. The guy wheels out his mother who probably was close to 90. Sorry, try not to laugh. And so he told me she's going to hospice. She doesn't have long to live. So she puts her in the back of the car. It's probably about 10 minutes getting her in the car, getting the wheelchair, everything in the back. I think it was one of those assisted rides also that Lyft does, that they pay you a little extra. So the he gets in the front seat with me and she starts kind of like gurgling a little bit and he goes, "Uh-oh, I think she might not make it. So hold on." And by this time I had already started the trip because they were in the car, we were ready to go, and then she just kind of passes away in the back seat. So I get out, I help him get out, and he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry about this, but I've got to call an ambulance now." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to leave you. Like, let me just stay with you. She could stay in the car until the ambulance gets here. I'm not going to have you wheel your dead mother out into the road." And so the ambulance comes. So I was with him for probably about 40 minutes, 30 minutes. So I ended up just canceling the trip instead of completing the trip.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Look, I want you to get paid for this trip. If Lyft asked anything, have them call me. I'll confirm." So I texted Lyft through the app and said, "The lady is dying." And they told me, "Well, to cancel the trip, you must call them first." And I said, "But how can I call them first if they're in the car with me?" "Well, that's not the point. The point is you need to call them first before you cancel to get the fee. Since you did not call them, you will not get the fee." And I said, "She is dying." And they said, "We are very sorry about that, but you still need to call them." And this went on for 15 minutes. And I said, "How would you feel if your mother was passing away? And I have to call you to ask you for a cancellation." And I think their report was, "We are very sorry for this experience. It's not the experience we want with Lyft, but this is all we can do for you. Have a good day." And it went on and on and on just to get a $3 cancellation fee. And then they try to give me instructions on how to cancel the trip correctly. So
Yeah.
that was my experience with that. So she literally passed away in my car and I had to help her out. And I felt really bad for the guy. And like, I didn't push it too much because it's just a $3 cancellation fee. I did it more actually to see what they were going to do.
Yeah, you may
So
be the only driver I've spoken to that somebody actually passed away, but in those, Lyft and Uber are both pushing medical trips on drivers for actually not even extra pay. And we talk about this. I mean, there's tremendous liability you're taking. What if somebody dies in your back seat? And,
yep.
and sure enough, she did. But anyway,
Or
have
somebody
rest
falls
in
with their
peace.
walker. Yeah,
Yeah,
because here you get a lot of people with walkers. I mean, what if you're helping? I mean, I had a lady the other day. I helped her with her walker, and then she went to reach up on my door handle and she fell.
yeah,
Luckily,
yep,
she wasn't hurt. But if some 90-year-old falls, they're going to
yeah.
get hurt.
Yeah,
You
something is going to break, right? So we have a few minutes remaining, but let's switch back to something positive and with a positive note, right? You know, you are working hard and you're getting paid, right? I always look, I have a motto, what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. Nobody's going to give you anything for free. Okay. Maybe we're a little too old world. Maybe we think like that, but a lot of the new generation doesn't think like that. But let's end on a positive note. I always ask for advice from successful drivers like yourselves that I interview all the time. Every Thursday, we put these up, people. Okay. These are all successful people in their own cities and states. They are there because they're working. It's not like they're expecting something, right? But I'm going to give you the floor the last couple of minutes. Give our audience some advice. What to do? Should they stick with X? Should they move up in platform? What they should do? Just give us some advice.
The advice that I give most people is create an LLC. This gives you a lot of leeway with different tax breaks, different things. To give you an example, the Suburban that I paid $75,000 for, there is a tax break for weight over $6,000 with an SUV. So I'm going to get the write-off $37,000 on my taxes this year for depreciation with that. I could not do that if I didn't have the LLC. Yeah. Commercial insurance is extremely important. There's a lot of people here in Palm Beach who do private trips, a lot of retired people. It is a dangerous game if you're not carrying the proper insurance and the licensing. When I first started, I did not. I took a guy to work every single day, and very nice guy. Became friends with him. Somebody bumped into me in the back of the car in my Tesla. I got out. The guy told me in Spanish that he did not have papers. He was illegal, and he was scared that I was going to call the police. Yep. Didn't even scratch my car. The guy in my backseat, who I thought was my friend, fell down and started screaming that he was hurt. Oh. And told the guy. So the guy offered me like $600 cash. The guy in my backseat took the cash and was like, "Oh, that was easy." Wow. But it made me realize right there that this guy could sue me, and if I didn't have proper insurance, I could lose everything. Yep. It's not worth it. I pay $400 a month for commercial insurance, which was $200 more than what I had. That protects me and the customer. So do it the right way. I mean, do things the right way. And it's not about the car you drive as much as it's how you are towards your customers. Like, treat your customers like your family. Keep your car clean. Get to know them. Ask them how their family's doing. Ask them how their kids are doing. Just get personable with them. My biggest advice to Uber drivers is find something in common with your passenger. Everybody has something in common with somebody. Ask them where they're from. If they're from, Michigan, and you've been to Michigan, say, "Oh, I've been to this place before. Oh, how's this? How's the weather?" Just get something in common with your passengers. You will get more tips. I get tips on 60% of my rides. I get huge tips. Like, I mean, the $100 tip was nothing to me. So you get those because you build a rapport. But to be successful, move up. I would always suggest buy a lower end high car, go through the Uber app, go through the Lyft app, find their list of cars, find the cheapest one of those that you can do. Make sure that it's black. Always stick with black, even if you don't like black, because as we see now, it's a big difference. So get an SUV, a smaller SUV, whatever, go electric, doesn't matter. Just make sure that it's within your means. Don't go crazy and pay 25% interest for a car because you're going to lose money. Even if you have to start off with renting a Tesla through the Uber app, if that's what you can do, that's what you can do. But invest your money, get multiple streams, multiple apps. Like, we have one InDrive here. We have other apps. Like, I just saw your Kickaboo thing yesterday. I'll sign up for that too. Just sign up for 100 different things. You don't have to do them, but there's no reason not to. I have a friend who is a Doordash driver, made 130,000 last year just doing Doordash. It's possible, right? But you just got to be personable. You got to know, you got to know when to drive, and you got to know how to talk to people, and that's it. Like, it's an easy thing. Love what you do.
Yeah, I mean, here's Trent from Palm Beach, Florida, and he's building his business. He has created multiple revenues of stream of revenues for himself and his family, and making a great living, loving what he's doing, but he's working at it. He's working hard, right? And Trent, I want to thank you for doing this with me. Much appreciated. I want you to stay healthy, and I want you to stay safe. And definitely we'll keep in touch and do updates with you. So thanks again. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.